I'm Brian Van, Sportbike and today we're going to install the New Rage Cycles Fender Eliminator on our 2017 Yamaha R6 STG project bike. Okay, New Rage Cycles, brand new vendor for us. We just added them. And how did we find them? How did we find New Rage Cycles? Well, while doing this project bike, I had put a set of driven mirror eliminators on the front of the R6, and of course, when you do that, you have pulled the mirrors off. The mirrors on this bike have the turn signals built in. Then you've got no signals. So I immediately began searching for front turn signals, and I found New Rage. These are super bitchin' front signals for the R6. That's how the relationship began, maybe 10 days or so ago, with those signals. And when I looked at the site and I saw the rear fender limb for this R6, I'm like, oh, we are gonna install all this stuff on the project bike. So here you go. Here is their fender eliminator. We have a powder coated metal frame. It's in two parts. You have an LED plate light. I'll go ahead and turn that on right now so you can see how well it illuminates it. If you don't want the plate light, you can install the kit without it. I personally would suggest installing it because the way it's tucked up in there, if you have it illuminated, you're really going to reduce the chances of getting hassled. Nobody wants that. The idea here is to make the bike look super bitchin', not get hassled. So this is a really clean install. It's super tucked up in there, very stealth. I'm going to show you what the signals look like right now. Those are LEDs that are inlaid in plastic, and then it's machined to match the lines of the metal bracketry. That is a super fresh design. Stuff's all done here in the US. Some cool bike guys. Got a chance to talk to one of the owners on the phone when we brought them on board, and I think this is going to be a great product line here for us. Having these install videos as we add them to our product mix, I think it's a great way to do it because you can see not only is the stuff high quality, but it's super unique. This looks really different than all the other fender eliminators that we typically would have merchandised on the website, and that's one of the things that really attracted me to it. If you want more information, stay tuned. We're gonna give you the full install, show you pulling off that big piece of shit boat anchor that they put on it from the factory. Get that off of there, go through the install here, and remember, they not only have that, but they also have the turn signals up in the front. If you wanna swing around, Steve, to just show you that. The flash rate you see here right now, that is only with plugging in the New Rage devices front and back. There is no resistor put in line. That is the flash rate, and I personally would say that is an acceptable flash rate. This stuff is super bright, super visible. I like it. Stay tuned for the full install. Okay, we're gonna open up by removing the passenger pylon and the rider seat. You need the key to remove the passenger. 5mm T-handle to get your rider seat off. We're going to remove the trim panel that goes in between the rider and the passenger seat. There are 4 push pins. Got to depress the center to release it. You hear a click and pull up. We'll reuse all these stock fasteners. Slides right out. You can see already got the battery tender harness installed. Okay, now we're going to unplug the turn signals and the license plate light connectors. Your turn signals are both right here. You want to press in on the center. Show you right here. You'll hear an audible click once you flex that enough to release it. Then go ahead and pull up. Like so. Here are your license plate light connectors. Separate those. Okay, now we're ready to unbolt the actual fender itself. Before we do that, we're gonna make just a little bit more room by removing this bracket. It's gonna give us a little better access to the fasteners that hold that stock fender in place. Take the two fasteners out. These are the bike side connectors for your turn signals. You can go ahead and if you want to slide those out of there. There's your tool kit. And now we've got lots of room to work with so we can remove the stock rear fender. Okay, as I got a little further into it, it looks like the nuts are actually part of that aluminum bracket. And we do not need to remove those. There is a little Loctite that was put on this from the factory because heaven forbid that stock fender falls off the bike and kills somebody behind you. And that was the noise you heard there. Okay, there you have it. I've got the fasteners out, as you can see now, and I didn't realize this beforehand because these did not look like they were part of it. The nuts are actually fixed right to the bracket that holds this gigantic rear fender. Okay, so we got the stock rear fender off. Look at that. God, that thing's huge, and it is ugly. Those two words are not great when you put them together. Here's the instructions. I had to print these off. We have them on the site. Just go ahead and download it, run them off on your printer if you want to use them. You can also go to the New Rage site to pull these down. Full color images, easy steps to follow. Of course, I'm going to pay zero attention to that as usual. Let's focus on the product itself now. Here are the rear turn signals. The LEDs are behind that plastic. It's been machined off. When these illuminate, they shine through there. It looks really bitchin'. We showed you that with the front signals. OE wiring connectors. Love that. Just going to plug right in. Super simple stuff. This does include a license plate light. Of course, also LED. If you don't want to run that, this is designed in such a way that you can actually take the plate light off. Nice powder coating on all of the metal pieces. This is a very unique design. The front signals look great. I'm really pumped to get this on the bike and have the rear match the front. Okay, now it's time to install the main frame for the Fender Eliminator bracket. This has the license plate light attached. We are going to use that on this application. You're going to begin by pushing the wiring harness for that plate light up in through the hole in the center of your subframe. This is an important tip. You see these two bosses here? When you tighten everything up, the Fender Eliminator bracket is going to come in contact with those bosses. You want to make damn sure that the harness for the license plate light is in between those two bosses. Okay, so line it up accordingly. You're going to begin by putting in the fasteners at the rearward most holes. The nuts that are supplied in the kit are nylock nuts, so no thread locker needs to be used, which is nice. Once you get this all torqued down, you're not going to have to worry about this coming loose. The way this is all set up, it's also important to note that we're going to have to torque the two bolts at the rear completely before we're able to install the turn signals, because once you've got the turn signal portion of the Fender Eliminator installed, you lose access to these two fasteners here. So we'll get that started. Got a 30 Torx, a 13 mil. I'm just going to run them down a bit, kind of draw this up against the subframe of the motorcycle. And before I really put any torque to it, we're going to want to make sure, like I said, that harness is located in between those two bosses really well. The clearance for that harness is pretty snug. You want to make sure that it's flat. And what will happen is the actual under tray itself looks like it'll dimple in. It'll push in just enough so you don't have to really be too concerned with that harness becoming crushed and shorting out. So looking at it, looks like that's going to work out. I'm going to drop the other two fasteners down from the top side. Make sure that harness, once again, is in between the bosses. That I've already done. Okay, and then get this centered up. We will now torque these two fasteners all the way. Kind of take a look at it, make sure everything looks square before you do run them all the way down. Looks great. Final torque. Okay, like so. Now we'll pull the fasteners out because these are going to be reinstalled from the underside up. We've now got our turn signals, once again OE connectors. That's really bitching. Slide these up in here. The way this all comes together, man, this is like a real tidy stealth look. I think this Fender Eliminator is going to be pretty popular for this bike. Really sets itself apart from the competition for sure. All the other Fender Eliminators we have are more traditional in mounting position, where this one really hugs that plate up against the bottom of the bike. All right, we'll grab the tools and run these down too. Keep an eye on the wiring harnesses for the turn signals, as well as the license plate light. Make sure you've not pinched anything. Okay, before I tighten this up, I want to come up inside the subframe area. I want to take a look, make sure everything is moving freely, nothing's pinched. All right, we'll go ahead and torque this all down. Now you'll go ahead and apply final torque. Once again, you know, these fasteners, there's no reason to go crazy on this stuff, okay? Those are tapered head Torx fasteners that they supplied. Nice and flush. Okay, very quickly, before you really go a whole bunch farther, let's do this. Let's start to plug things in and make sure everything works before you button the bike up completely. The white connector is going to be for the right side rear signal or brake side. The black, this is on the OE harnesses, is going to be for your left side. Let's get all that stuff plugged in. Your license plate light I'm not going to push those in all the way. I want to make sure it illuminates. Sometimes they are clarity sensitive. So if it's not illuminated, you may need to switch. And I did have to switch it, so that's why I did not push those in all the way. Just kind of see them in there, and then we'll go ahead and test our turn signals real quick. Okay, and the flash rate you're seeing is with using both of the new Rage signals on the front and the rear. Both sides are working. Now we can focus on buttoning it up and doing a nice clean routing in the undertail. I'm going to leave everything just finger tight while I get this all routed properly. They did include some cable ties. We're going to utilize those. Really tidy this up nicely. Good job on the length with the wiring harnesses. We don't really have a tremendous amount of excess to manage here, which is nice. So take your time with this. Get it routed properly. And this is going to be a real, just a nice tidy end result, man. It's not going to take a whole lot of effort to give this that factory look and finish. You can kind of tuck that in down here, like so. Make sure everything's copacetic. Go ahead and turn the tails off of the cable ties. A couple little pieces to reinstall here. Catch for the rear passenger seat latch. Go ahead and torque those down. The mounting bracket for the tail light. Of course, your supplied tool kit, which essentially those two Allen wrenches. Run that down. Little trim panel here. This motorcycle already has the battery tender harness installed, so make sure you don't pinch that. Like I said this before, this bike really, the tail section of this bike really reminds me of the R1. Very similar to work on. Reusing the stock push pins here. That is all in place. We've got our rider seat. Tip on the rider seat. You can see this tongue here. And here's the tongue on the seat. You want to make sure this slides underneath that. So dip it down, kind of pull up, you can tell it's there. Push forward. Get the bolts to drop in place. 5mm Allen head again. So we're just using the same tools that we had back in the rear. Go ahead and run that down, let the ear of the seat drop. Then we'll drop our passenger pylon back in place. I'm going to lift the bike up and we will get that license plate installed. Okay, I've got the license plate installed. I turned the key on to illuminate it. You know, I want to illustrate, this is the most tucked up Fender Eliminator style I've ever installed. That really looks cool. It's got it right up against the bottom of the under tray for sure. So that's pretty stealth. The license plate light illuminates it nicely. You know, depending upon where you're living, how you're riding, yeah, could you get hassled for that? I mean, that could be maybe questionable, but you can't argue the fact that it looks absolutely badass. And it only gets better when you turn the signals on. Those things are awesome, man. That looks so badass on the back of this bike. And remember, we've got this paired up too with their New Rage signals and mirror eliminators up front. This style really goes well with the lines of this R6. I think it's cool. I like the quality of it. I like the way it installed. Fresh concept, fresh design. We're excited to offer it for sure. This is the New Rage Cycles Fender Eliminator install on the 2017 and up Yamaha R6.